Hi, everybody. My name is Jody Katz. I'm the founder and creative director of Base Beauty Creative Agency. Welcome to our immersion program today on Earth Day to learn all about CBD and skincare. And I am so excited to introduce you to Joan Sutton. She's the founder of 707 Flora. In the next 30 minutes, she will give us a deep dive into the transformative power of full spectrum hemp and how the cannabis hemp industry is impacting the world of cosmetics. After years of bringing hundreds of products to market for some of the world's biggest cosmetic companies, Joan's career has now led to her becoming an expert in not only the scientific research and health benefits, but also the ever-evolving rules and regulations in manufacturing cannabis or hemp-derived products. Joan is also an advocate for sustainable packaging, renewable energy, and is passionate about sharing her knowledge with brands so that together we can make a positive impact on our planet. So we welcome all questions from attendees. You'll be able to put those into the questions or the chat. We'll try to make time for them at the end. We are recording this event, so we'll be able to share you a link next week, and you can share that link with your other team members so they can learn from Joan as well. And for the attendees who made it today, I'm excited to say that Joan is going to send you a 707 Flora gift in the mail. So over email, we'll reach out for your mailing address, and Joan will send out that package to you. So Joan, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our fans today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, and happy Earth Day to everyone. I'm in beautiful Humboldt, California. And so I'm going to take you through a presentation I've prepared for today in celebration of this day, and also to really celebrate this plant and what we're doing with it. And now that the world is sort of open to it, the possibilities that are coming alongside that. So I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen to start the presentation. So welcome. Thank you all. I know we're all so busy, so thank you for taking a pause in today and spending this short half hour with us to talk about CBD and skincare and sustainability. I know I invited a lot of my colleagues and friends, and so you know me, but for those of you who don't, I am at heart a product developer. My heart and soul has always been in skincare and personal care cosmetics. I've been fortunate enough to work for many major brands and probably have touched some of the formulas that you may have in your bathroom right now. I've been blessed and have an amazing network of chemists and supply chain friends. And so we've touched a lot of products over my career, which has been now almost 30 years. So that's me. I am in the beautiful county of Humboldt, California. For those of you who don't know, Humboldt County is about 4 hours north of the Golden Gate Bridge as you drive, and we're in the Redwoods. It's so beautiful. There are so many beautiful rivers and lakes, and obviously the landscape is incredible. And what is also so special about Humboldt County is that our brand is called 707 Flora. We're based here in Humboldt, and 707 is in our name to honor Humboldt County and the Emerald Triangle in general, which is the cannabis capital of the U.S. and some would argue the entire globe. So we're paying homage to the farmers and the generations of people that have communities that have really celebrated this plant and taught us so much and made so much of what today is allowed in cannabis. They're really the true pioneers of that. So we're paying homage to them with the 707 in our name, which is the area code here in Humboldt and Emerald Triangle, like I said, and Flora, which celebrates the flower, which is where we're getting the cannabinoids from and the actives that we're using in our formulations. So we're really talking about two industries, two sciences, and two worlds. When my partner and I had the idea to come up with the brand, he immediately wanted to have us come to Humboldt and really learn more about the plant. He is an industry veteran. I'm very lucky to have my partner, Wesley Titus, who has more than the same equivalent years I have in beauty industry in cannabis. And so he really knows this plant so well and also is so ingrained into the community. So he was able to open up that world so that we could really learn about that and apply it into skincare, because it really is two different worlds. So our vision is to marry those worlds together so that we can elevate and offer the best possible benefits from the plant. So to give you an overview of what we're going to touch base really quickly on today is the CBD market overview. So just to give you an idea of the size, like what is it generating? Lots of billions of dollars, which is exciting. The science behind it, which I think is why it is generating so much dollars and attention and excitement around it. So the science, we'll talk a little bit about that. Through the science, we'll be talking a little bit about some of the regulations, supply chain, lab testing, baking, advertising, e-commerce, and more. Those are some of the challenges that us pioneers in cannabis have faced. Though the Farm Bill passed in 2018 and it is legal, there are so many hurdles that people don't realize we still face that are challenges that we will still pursue and overcome, but they're still very much there. It's not such an easy ride when you enter in the cannabis world. And then I want to talk a little bit about the future of cannabis and wellness in general. I think that now is the perfect time, especially on Earth Day here, to continue the conversation about wellness and, of course, sustainability and the efforts that we make as a brand and some ideas that we have that we can all do that are little changes, because it's not so easy to be sustainable, and it's not just packaging that you can have efforts to be sustainable for your brand or yourself. And so the CBD beauty market is huge. We all see it, and it's emerged in after the Farm Bill passed in 2018. It's grown exponentially. The numbers are growing and even more rapid. I don't see it slowing down. If anything, I think the pandemic will fuel it more because people have this search for well-being, and this plant is offering that. It's undeniable the benefits that it's having on people's lives and their skin and for their overall well-being. So while the science is still catching up, the testimonials are undeniable. So that's fueling the growth. And as we fuel that with more science behind it, it'll just create more consumer confidence and will grow even more. So we're projecting in 2018, it was 633 million, and they're projecting it to be 3.4 billion by 2026. And 2026 is really not that far away. So you can see how much it's going to grow and grow and grow. So talking a little bit about the cannabis, the beauty, and the science, that was what we wanted to make sure that we did with 707 Flora. Is really, like I said, I'm very fortunate to have a partner who is all cannabis, and I was able to tap into that resource and educate myself and use that as my information and marry that with my expertise in beauty background with formulators and all of the raw materials that would work well with cannabis, and doing what we would do as product developers anyway, which is put a synergistic blend of raw materials that are actives that are effective onto the skin, and of course highlight the effects that cannabis is having first and foremost. So cannabis, just so that we're all clear and all on the same page, this may be redundant for a lot of you, but hemp and marijuana are the same plant. They're both cannabis. They're just different types. So the way that they categorize that is by hemp having less than 0.3% THC, and marijuana having more than 0.3% THC. And this was sort of I don't want to say a random number, but this number, that 0.3%, came about in 1976. A Canadian, there was an event that happened and they needed to deem that, and the Canadian government came up with that 0.3%. It's 0.4% doesn't all of a sudden get you high. It's just that was where we were working with. There's a lot of, I'm going to talk a little bit about regulation right now. I'm involved in a lot of hemp associations, and one of the things that they're lobbying for right now for the farmers is to raising that 0.3% to 1%. And the reason why is because when a farmer grows their crops, and if it's over 0.3%, then they're not lawful, because then it becomes marijuana. And it's really hard, as you can imagine. This occurs in nature, like behind me. It's like, how do you control exactly that amount? It's we can get it pretty close, but there's always that 0.3%. There's a little variation there. So they're trying to up that, which is going to be a huge conversation. We don't know if we'll see it yet, but that's the hot topic right now that people are lobbying for. I think it's going to be at 0.3% for a very long time, but just that's the conversations, and those are the kind of things that we are dealing with in cannabis. And it's so important because you can imagine as a farmer, if you've invested in this huge crop and all of a sudden you don't have it, it's important to be able to work with them, and that helps the sustainability efforts for them, to be able to sell their raw materials, which is hugely important. And that's why we need to pay attention to these things that are going on, with regulatory and the FDA and the USDA. So then I'm going to quickly define cannabinoids. Cannabinoids are, the chemical compounds, which we're talking about, CBD being one of them. THC is a cannabinoid. There's about 113 known cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. You can also get cannabinoids from other plants. People can mimic the action of cannabinoids and make synthetic versions. There's a company called GW Pharmaceuticals, in the UK, who has, a synthetic version of CBD. That's a cannabinoid. And we also actually produce two cannabinoids in our body, in the endocannabinoid system, which is anandamide, which is known as the bliss molecule. That molecule is known to release after when you're meditating. And also a lot of people also consider that, what they call the runner's high. After 20 minutes, your endorphins release, and part of what's released there is the anandamide, the bliss molecule, which is a cannabinoid that we're producing in our body. The other one that we produce is 2-AG. And that cannabinoid is also, something that's released and produced in our body. So we're actually producing it and receiving it. So it's helping, to control the cannabinoid system, which we'll talk about a little bit. But we do have, endocannabinoids, which means within the body. So cannabinoids are a class of chemical compounds that are mimicking that phyto plant, cannabinoid. So that is what a cannabinoid is. So I also think it's hugely important to talk about hemp seed oil, what it is and what it isn't. What it is a great ingredient that we've used in cosmetics for literally decades. It is very rich in omega-3s and 6s and GLAs. It's a more of a moisturizing, base oil, which is great. What it is not is, it doesn't have any cannabinoids, and it is not CBD. One thing I think is important for our industry and as consumers as well to understand is, if we all did an exercise right now and went on to Amazon and typed in CBD hemp products, and whatever comes up, look at what comes up, and you would probably be tricked as a consumer thinking what you're buying is CBD, when Amazon is very strict that it is not, selling CBD. So anything that is on there, unless it's falsely labeled or it's up for before they can catch it, there is not CBD. But it's a good exercise to understand that, it's easy to see how the confusion is created in the market, because they're actually making it look like it's CBD when it's not. It's an amazing ingredient, but it's not, excuse me, it's not, cannabis. I mean, it's
So,
not seed. Mhm.
sorry, Joan. It's Jody. I have a question about this. So, we talk about greenwashing when it comes to clean and natural beauty. I guess this is the equivalent of like CBD washing, right? You're making me think that it's going to be rich in CBD. It's rich in hemp, which is nice, but it's not the same thing.
Exactly. And I think it's such a good exercise. It took me a long time to figure out, because my friends were all saying, why aren't you selling on Amazon? And I had set up my brand, and, it took me a long time. If you're a beauty brand on Amazon, it's a lot to go through. It took me a few months. Then I finally got it up, and I had my eye cream up, and it lasted all of 24 hours. And then I got a letter saying that I was selling illicit drugs. So they catch it right away. So the most it would be up would be 24 hours. I was tricked myself looking, going, wait a minute, because the way they say it is milligrams, and it looks just like it's CBD, but it is not. It's from the, seed itself. The actual, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the forms of the raw material and how it comes. But when I talked at the beginning of the presentation, Flora is flower in our brand 707 Flora. And that is where, the cannabinoids are mostly concentrated. That and sort of the stems, around it. There's trichomes, which are producing the phytocannabinoids in there, which are the THCs, the CBG, CBD, CBN, all of those different cannabinoids. So What we do when we get those cannabinoids is we turn it into a usable raw material for cosmetics and ingestibles for CBD to take. So there's what's called a full spectrum oil, and that's what we use in all of our products. I'm very fond of full spectrum because it's basically what I feel is a more holistic approach to the raw material. They take the flower and actually extract the full everything, all of the cannabinoids that are in there. So it's the full spectrum. The concept behind that is keeping nature intact, having all of the different cannabinoids that have been living together and growing together stay together so they have an entourage effect, meaning that they're all working in synergy together. We're leaving it what Mother Nature created alone, and that's in the full spectrum oil. Then they have, we've heard a lot about isolate. Isolate is looks like a powder, and that's when they're going in and they're taking just the one cannabinoid. So they're isolating that. So they're isolating most often CBD. You could isolate other ones, but for this purposes, we're talking about isolating CBD. Isolate you'll find a lot in water products or drinks. It's not the distillate and the broad spectrum, full spectrum oils are not water soluble because they're oil. Isolate is more water soluble, so you'll see that more in those kind of beverages. One of the things to know about isolate, it is definitely the least, it's sort of the lowest on the totem pole in terms of pricing and efficacy. Then you've just got to make sure that your product is stable. A lot of times what happens even in an isolate form is if you have a drink and it's a water-based drink or a sports drink, whatever it is, the CBD will actually cling to the outside of the bottle, the inner wall of the bottle, so it sort of separates. So you just want to make sure that what you're using is effective. Looking at we'll talk a little bit about lab testing, but looking at those lab test results and make sure that you're getting what you paid for. When you're seeing brands that have huge claims like 1,000 milligram CBD, chances are they're using isolate because it would be the most economical way to do it. A lot of the hemp industry association people that I am in network with are sort of against isolate. I'm not 100% against it, but it's not something I would ever choose to use in my products. And then we have broad spectrum. Broad spectrum is sort of almost the same as full spectrum. We're keeping everything intact except we're isolating out and removing THC. So there's THCA, there's THC delta 9, and there's also delta 8 THC you're hearing a lot of. So usually when they're doing broad spectrum, they're taking out all THC, and that's for a THC free claim, which is important to some people. So I think that's sort of the next best thing to full spectrum.
So Joan, when we're hearing about like coffee shops serving CBD coffee, that's the isolate, and most likely it's stuck to the cup. And I'm
Well,
not.
it depends. No, because I would use, I, for example, put our distillate into my coffee, but I stir it up and I drink it like that day. It's if you're packaging it and leaving it, it's going to migrate out to the side. And they could be using a distillate or they could be using isolate. So you'd have to really ask the question.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Mhm. So this next slide is about the endocannabinoid system. And this is going to just tell you why it's so hot and why CBD became like a snake oil kind of topic. And everybody was saying it was great for everything. It helps me. I've got 99 problems and CBD is solving them all. It's this is why, because we have what's called endocannabinoid system in our body. And that is different touch points through our system. You can see the areas it affects, which is really comprehensive. And it affects our pain, inflammation, memory, mood, appetite, stress, sleep, metabolism, pretty much almost everything. So you have these touch points, and basically what they are, the CB1, CB2 are receptors. So to make it sort of explain it in an easy way, if your cell is here on the outside of the cell, there's receptors, little signalers on the outside of the cell that are ready to receive cannabinoids. So whether it's your endocannabinoids, which you're producing in your body, whether it's the phytocannabinoid from the plant, the cannabis plant, or say the synthetic version, basically it's going to it's going to be received by that receptor because it's ready to talk. And then that receptor sends a signal to the nucleus of the cell to basically be normal, keep it in balance, keep it in homeostasis. So if you're inflamed, it's going to help to down regulate the inflammation. In our skin, for example, we have what's called a natural moisturization factor, where our skin is always trying to produce its own moisturization anyway. So there's that function of the skin. If you're producing too much, the CBD, when it hits those cell receptors, may choose to, if it's not in balance, will downregulate that moisture. So it helps to upregulate when needed and downregulate when needed throughout the entire system of all of those touch points, wherever we have the CB1 and CB2 receptors. And that's why it is affecting, so it is helping people in so many ways, because basically it's putting us in balance. That's what we're trying to achieve, is homeostasis in our body. So balance, well-being. And in skincare, we're trying to do that on a microscopic level with our skin cells. So we're basically microdosing the skin with CBD to keep it, those little baby cells, into homeostasis. And we'll talk a little bit how it functions on the skin, but that's the concept overall. We've also just launched ourselves for our brand, Tinctures, and those are CBD drops that you're taking internally. And we've added that with CO2 extracted turmeric, which is a way to really get the actives of turmeric concentrated out of the root, and then put it with the CBD and an MCT oil, full spectrum. And you're taking it daily. And we really are calling that beauty from within, because we know that when we're healthy inside, obviously that is radiating to the world and through our skin. Turmeric, to me, was the perfect raw material to put in conjunction with CBD, because they have sort of the same great benefits of anti-inflammatory, anti-aging. Turmeric's great for the skin. It helps with digestion. There's just so many things that turmeric was great for. It seems like the perfect pair to take these tinctures to the next level. So we're doing them topically, and now we've just started doing ingesting some CBD drops as well for our brand.
Hey, Joan, I'm going to give you a time check. We have about 8 minutes left.
Okay, great. So I'm going to just quickly go through how cannabis works on skin, because that's always a question that I get. We actually have CB1 and CB2 receptors on the basal layer of the skin. So that's the bottom pink layer on the very, very bottom. That's where the cells are born. So we know that the cells are born brand new. They make the journey to the top layer of the skin, and then they die, and they sort of just slough off. And that's why we use exfoliators, to keep its skin polished. So you'll see the cellular turnover rate as an infant is like 2 weeks, and that's why their skin is so plump and juicy and beautiful. As we get into our all the way down over our 50s, we're taking upwards of a month and a half, 6 weeks. So that journey has become longer for that cell that's produced on the bottom of the basal layer to get to the top of the epidermis, which is what we show to the world. And so we're feeding it CBD when it's born, so that when it makes that journey, whether it's a 4-week journey or a 2-month journey, depending on where you are in your life, it helps to keep that cell more strong, more vibrant, more ready to combat the internal and external aggressors that affect our skin cells through the life cycle of it going to the top layer of the epidermis. So this helps to keep the skin healthy. It's like I say, like, it's like CBD is like an armor that you're putting around that skin cell to really help fight through everything it has to for those 2 months of migration to the top layer of the skin. Dosing is really important. If you take too low, it's not going to be effective. And if you take too high, it's not going to be effective. So if we're taking, I'm recommending for your whole body starting with about 15 milligrams, going up to about 25. And that's what I'm taking at night, about 25 milligrams. So you can imagine on your skin, you don't need a huge amount. So when you're seeing brands like just putting, I've got 1,000 milligrams, it's probably isolate or whatever, but it's not, more isn't necessarily better. So when you're thinking about dosing your skin, if we're using 15 to 25 for our entire body, we just need to microdose the skin. So you're using just a small amount. So that's just one thing to look out for in CBD, and really think about what its function is and how you're using it, because it becomes like watering a dry plant. It's just going to fall through. It's not going to really affect that skin cell that we're trying to affect if you're using too much of it. So testing is really important. I encourage you to, we have lab testing on our site. We're very transparent. Most great brands are. There's more and more products that are coming out with that full transparency. This is another regulatory and testing sort of growth pain we've had. The labs are still catching up with themselves when we're using these advanced raw materials in conjunction with the cannabinoids. Sometimes our testing is off. So we're working with labs to sort of standardize that process. It's something to know. It's not just, there's no comps, right? So there's so many things that we're learning for the first time. We're on a wellness trend. I think after the pandemic, we're all looking forward to having our health and our world and our lives back. And there's not a better way to really enhance that than with cannabis. We know that in California, the dispensaries were deemed essential to our wellness and stayed open the entire pandemic. And this CBD skincare is just an extension of that. Our consumers are craving well-being, they're craving natural, and they're craving clean beauty. And so that's sort of the trend that we're saying. The last slide I want to talk about really is about sustainability. As a small brand, sometimes it's hard, as we know, to make all of the efforts to do everything that we want to do. But I did want to tell you that there are things that we do. We have the United Nations 2030 sustainability goals is our guide, and we use there's different choices we can make. We use plastic, but we're using PE, which is polyethylene, and that material doesn't have a negative effect on the environment. We also use PP, and that can be recycled. So it's just knowing and educating. We're working on a page on it for our website now, so that consumers know how to disassemble packaging if it needs to be, so it can be fully received on through the recycling facilities. We don't use black. I don't know if a lot of you know, but black is not recognized by the recycle machine. So when you're having a black cap or a black component, it's not always signaled for the recycling. So we're careful not to use that color. We're using, I'm so excited. We have a great partner with our unit cartons. We're using recycled board and certified board, and we're printing with 100% wind energy. We're also partnering this entire month with One Tree Planted, which is one of my favorite organizations. They plant for every sale this month. We're planting one tree, and we've done it last year a few times. It's something that we're actively involved with them and partner with them. So obviously you can see the trees are very important in our life. So we are continuing to support that. We're also working with another company. I'm going to say this really quick because I know I'm out of time, but we're working with another company to erase our footprint. And it's a new concept, and it's called Upcycle. And basically we're taking our measurement of all of the plastic, even the PP and PE that is recyclable, and we're basically donating enough money to recycle that amount of plastic on Earth, so that we're basically erasing our footprint. So though we still have it, we're working to erase it. And those are our sustainable practices, and partnering with people and other companies that have those same views, I think is hugely important.
Joan, feedback in the chat is super exciting. Lots of exclamation points and hoorays and wonderfuls on the sustainability efforts. But I do have a really good question, and we only have time for one. This is a question, I think it really goes back to regulation. Are you able to ship to all 50 states?
No, and that's changing all the time. I think one of the states that just does not want cannabis in it is Idaho is one that just, so we follow that carefully. So that's ever changing and literally can change on a weekly or a daily basis. So that's something we just got to stay on top of.
So you have someone on your team who's just reading the news around regulations with shipping, like that's part of their job? Oh, that's you.
Well, I'm getting all of, because I'm in so many different organizations, that they're constantly having us lobbying, right? So I'm always like, sign for, distribution, help Idaho, help, Texas become, more compliant, like different things, initiatives. So that's how we get it. And yes, our team, Wesley's always keeping out on regulations for us. He's very involved in that, and everybody on my team actually. But we try. It's impossible to really keep up with, so we do our best.
Okay, I have my last question, which might take us a minute over, but if you had a crystal ball, when do you think that these regulations will ease up where the consumer can find her CBD products, the ones she can trust, and order them online and see ads for them on Instagram and whatnot?
I would say in the next couple of years, it will. I think it would have been faster. I think the resources became more limited with the FDA and the USDA because of the pandemic and because of the state of the world right now. So normally I would say it would be quicker, but with limited resource, I think it's going to stretch out the time. So I would say like 2 to 3 years. It should be buttoned up. They're trying to work with us too. They're just trying to make it right, and there's just not a comp. It's a new pathway.
Well, thank you so much, Joan. This has been a very informative 31 minutes. Thank you to our attendees. As a reminder, you'll get a link to this to download sometime in the next week. And Joan's sending you something in the mail, so look out for an email from us so we can collect your addresses. Thank you, Joan.
Bye. Thank you.